Hello and welcome viewers, I am Pia and you're watching NewsX World. We're tracking some very crucial breaking updates from the Middle East. The IDF now says that the 7 hostages handed over by Hamas earlier have arrived at the initial reception point in Israeli territory. Of course, you can see visuals of Donald Trump's arrival at the Ben Gurion airport earlier. But here, of course, you see visuals from the border between Israel and Gaza. This is the Reem checkpoint. This is near the Reem checkpoint where, of course, the convoy will be arriving. The hostages who have been released, 7 of them, will soon undergo an initial medical evaluation and meet with their families at the reception point in the Gaza envelope area. IDF representatives are accompanying all the families who are waiting at the hospitals and providing them with ongoing updates as to what exactly is happening as far as the status of the convoy is concerned. The IDF is prepared to receive additional hostages who are expected to be transferred to the Red Cross very soon. The hostages released so far, 7 of them have been identified as Matan and Grest, brothers Gali and Ziv Berman, Alon Ohel, Eitan Moore, Omri Miran and Guy Gilboa Dalal. Now, they'll also be receiving a welcome kit upon their arrival in Reem. This includes clothing, personal equipment, laptop, cell phone, a tablet as well. In the meantime, we're also learning that even as the first group of hostages is slated to arrive in Reem very shortly, they are at the initial reception point. The Red Cross is meanwhile on its way to the second meeting point in the southern sector where hostages who are a part of the second group will be handed over to it very soon. With us on the broadcast is Mr. Peter Bohm, a foreign editor of Weekly Blitz, joining us from London. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. We're witnessing a landmark moment at this time. We've in fact seen some very heartwarming visuals from the Hostages Square in Tel Aviv earlier as well. You know, families and loved ones of the hostages, they are elated, they're in disbelief that this is happening, this is transpiring. And a lot of effort has gone into realizing this deal. We've just seen Trump land a while back as well. Where do you now see this headed? We do know that there's going to be another crucial meeting in Egypt very soon.
Yeah, I thank you for having me once again on your fantastic program. I think not even the most optimistic of us who wanted Trump's objective to be achieved would have believed that we'd get to this point in such a short space of time after President Trump first initiated his 21-point plan. I think the achievements from all those good faith actors involved has been fantastic to put pressure on both the Israeli government and Hamas, and to get to this point has been quite remarkable. Now, bear in mind too, neither of the parties on this conflict, i.e. Israel and Hamas, have achieved their objectives. And in the meantime, hundreds of thousands of people have been impacted, from which it will take a generation, maybe longer, for them to recover. But to be optimistic, where do I see it going, which was your question? I really think now it's up to those good faith actors to quickly implement a plan to enable the Gazans to live as normal a life as possible. That now means rebuilding schools, housing, infrastructure. And we've seen what the Chinese can do in how quickly cities, roads, buildings can be put up. It's not beyond the, it's not a far-reach thought to think that such building reconstruction can be achieved, from which Gazans can rebuild their lives. However, I put one caveat by this. What has to change more than anything else is the way Gazans have been brought up generation after generation. This means the education system has to change. Currently, the education system for 5 generations of Gazans has been to be indoctrinated with an anti-Jewish curriculum, funded, I must say, in UNRWA run schools. So as long as that's changed, running parallel with the reconstruction, I think Gazans can create for themselves, providing those good faith actors help financially in rebuilding their shattered lives.
Absolutely, you've hit the nail. In fact, we're also tracking more information. We're now learning that the Red Cross has received the second group of hostages. Breaking news coming in. Of course, the first has now arrived at the initial reception point in Israeli territory. They will undergo an initial medical evaluation, meet with their families. In the Gaza envelope area, which is the reception point in Israeli territory. They will be provided with clothing, personal equipment, laptops, cell phones and a tablet as well. Meanwhile, breaking news coming in, the Red Cross has received the second group of hostages. There's been fresh confirmation coming in regarding this. Remember, 7 hostages have already entered Israeli territory. Their families are, of course, elated at the moment. And Mr. Peterbaum, coming back to you, you've stated that, lasting peace can only be achieved once this trauma, this generational trauma is addressed, this indoctrination is done away with. And we've addressed this before, and you've pointed out that reconstruction will take a long time, perhaps a decade or more. But in the immediate aftermath, what's really required on the ground?
Indeed. Well, going back to your to the behaviour of the Red Cross, most of us who have been following these events for the last couple of years have been absolutely flabbergasted at how the Red Cross has behaved. They have lost all credibility. They've behaved like they did in the Second World War, i.e. Going to the death camps and saying that everything was okay. Not one Red Cross member has visited one hostage held in captivity by Hamas in the last 2 years. So the Red Cross come into their own when all the players have done the dirty work, and they kind of come in right at the end, being the organisation by which both sides use to exchange hostages. But as far as their credibility is concerned, it's absolutely been shot. Most analysts who have been watching this have been staggered. I use that word, I use the word flabbergasted. I can't think of, I want to use stronger words, but I shan't do. Have absolutely been aghast at the poor behaviour, the professional incompetence of the Red Cross during the last 2 years. Now, what is needed? One thing that I think hasn't been mentioned has been how the wealth that the leaders of Hamas have accumulated over the years should be used. I mean, I think over $22 billion is being held in Turkish, Qatari and Swiss banks by the members of the Hamas leadership. I think that money could be used to help in the reconstruction of Gaza. I don't think Western and Arab nations, who will bear the brunt of it, I think if pressure was born on those countries to release the funds held in the names of either deceased or living Hamas operatives, that would be a real public relations coup for all good faith actors, and it would show that Hamas as a terrorist group accumulated wealth that should have gone into the well-being and the lives of ordinary Gazans. Now, as I said before, China has proved time and time again how quickly infrastructure can be built. They've done it. They've done it within months. Similarly, Gaza could experience similar infrastructure growth, providing there is the will and the commitment to do it. So I don't think the putting up of buildings, the repairing of sewerage systems, of electricity grids, of water sanitation units, that can all be achieved. There is the brilliance of human power and intelligence to create the conditions to make the life of Gazans much better than it is in a relatively short period of time.
All right, so requesting you to stay on with us. So we're getting some further updates coming in. We're learning that Einaf Zengauka, mother of Israeli hostage Matan Zengauka, has spoken to him over a video call. She's told him that the war is over and has reassured him that he is finally on his way home after being held in captivity by Hamas over the last 2 years. Let's take a look at this conversation.
אתה לא מאמין, חיים שלי. עזה תהיה בסדר. אין יותר מלחמה. אתם כולכם חוזרים הביתה.
כולם, מאמי, נגמר.
זהו, נגמרה המלחמה. אתם חוזרים הביתה. חיים שלי, אני אוהבת אותך. חיים שלי.
מתן, מאמי, נגמר המלחמה.
גדול מתן, אתה חוזר הביתה, כולכם חוזרים הביתה, אני אוהבת אותך. חיים שלי, תודה לאל, נגמרה המלחמה, נגמרה המלחמה, אין מלחמה. אתה בא הביתה, חיים שלי אמא, אתה בא הביתה, אין מלחמה, אין מלחמה, נגמר. חיים שלי, אני אוהבת אותך, אני מחכה לך. חיים שלי.
Here, of course, you can see the mother of one of the hostages, Matan Zengauka, speaking to him. It's quite the emotionally charged conversation that we've just heard. He's, of course, one of the 7 hostages who have been released. Apart from him, brothers Gali and Ziv Berman, Alon Ohel, Eitan Moore, Omri Miran, and Guy Gilboa Dalal. They've all been released by Hamas today. They have arrived at the initial reception point in Israeli territory and will soon undergo an initial medical evaluation and meet with their families at the reception point in the Gaza envelope area. IDF representatives are accompanying all the families waiting at the hospitals and providing them with ongoing updates. The IDF is prepared to receive additional hostages. Remember, the second group of hostages has been received by the Red Cross already. So they will be handing, the Red Cross in particular will be handing over the second group of the hostages to the IDF very, very soon, which will bring them to Riyadh very, very soon for their medical checkup. They'll also be given a welcome kit, including clothing, personal equipment, laptop, cell phone, and a tablet. And Netanyahu, in the meantime, his wife too, Sarah, they've penned a personal message to the hostages. And written in Hebrew is, "Welcome back, we've been waiting for you and we embrace you." Here, of course, you can see now on your screens breaking updates coming in. This is the very first picture of Israeli hostage Guy Gilboa Dalal, who's now been released from Hamas custody. He is interacting with an IDF official. This is the first image that has now been released, the first of the 7 hostages in the first group who've now been released. This photo has been put out, it has been released by the IDF. Of course, a major development in the Middle East. With me on the broadcast is Mr. Saul Satka, security analyst and author, joining us from Tel Aviv. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX. We've been tracking this very heartwarming information coming in. Now, of course, visual confirmation. The first hostage has now been received by the IDF. Very emotional moment for the hostages, their families. They've been in captivity for 2 years. But in the meantime, we're also seeing, larger concerns regarding whether this ceasefire will hold or not. I wanted to understand from you, since you are in Tel Aviv, what's the mood like on the ground? We've seen countless people gather at the Hostage Square.
The mood is euphoric. I was just at Hostage Square. People are very excited. But in the streets everywhere you go, people are smiling and hugging each other. And people have understood that while Hamas still exists, they are no longer going to be a threat to Israel once we have the hostages back. So people are very happy about that.
Indeed,
And people have built they built a connection because all the names of all these people, all their faces have been plastered all over the streets for 2 years now. So people know their names, they know who they are, they recognize their parents from the television, they know the stories of their children. We're seeing now emotional pictures of their children being informed that their parents have come back. So people are very touched on a personal level.
Indeed, and you know, Donald Trump has landed in Israel. He is going to be addressing the Knesset very soon, chairing another meeting in Egypt as well. He'll be co-chairing this with the Egyptian President El-Sisi. We've seen quite a warm conversation between Trump and Netanyahu earlier in the day. Witkoff was present, Jared Kushner was also there. How are the Israelis reacting to Donald Trump? He has recently, just before landing, pointed out that this is perhaps one of the most difficult deals, but the most major deal that he has cracked.
Yes, well, absolutely. I happen to have seen Witkoff and Kushner yesterday in their hotel. And I can tell you that wherever they walk, even inside the hotels, they're mobbed and there's clapping. And people are very excited to have Donald Trump here, I would say. People are, in a way, he is very proud of himself, and rightly so, because he has brought this deal to fruition. It's been brought to fruition by a mixture of pressure from him and the inability of Hamas to continue fighting, really. They were about to be completely wiped out. And their backers in Qatar, Turkey, and Egypt realized that this was their last opportunity to use some kind of leverage to get some goodies out of the United States. And that's pretty much why the deal happened now and not a year ago. All the stars had to align. Finally, they did. Finally, the hostages are getting out. The people of Gaza will remain in terrible conditions for the foreseeable future, because while I agree with you that this first stage of the deal looks to have been completed right now, it looks like the 13 final living hostages have just been released in the last minutes. And over the next few days, the bodies of the remaining 28 will be released. And that pretty much, at that point, between Israel and Hamas, there will be a large buffer zone patrolled by the Israeli army. But on the other side of that buffer zone, inside the territory that Hamas controls, there's about 1.5 million Gazans. And they are going to have to probably fight it out between themselves, between Hamas and the various clans. Just yesterday, we saw an incredible amount of bloodletting. Dozens, if not hundreds of people were killed in essentially what was the first day, the last day of the Israel-Hamas war was 2 days ago, and yesterday seemed to be the first day of the Gaza civil war. And Gaza is already pretty wrecked. Most of the domiciles, most of the homes that people live in have been destroyed or damaged beyond habitation. And piles of rubble remain. The UN has estimated, and I believe they're correct when you do the math, that just the process of clearing the rubble, even if it was done at the maximum realistic pace, would take 15 to 20 years. And I'm not sure if they're taking into account the fact that the rubble is not regular rubble like you would get from a building site, but it's rubble that is laced with bombs and explosives and human remains, because 70% of the homes in Gaza that the IDF approached were in some way or another weaponized by Hamas. So the process of turning those ruins, first of all, back into buildable land alone is a very, very long process. So today, as the war ends, is the first day of a terrible time for Gaza. Gazans are now entering, today is a beautiful day, it's 30 degrees outside, but in a few weeks the rains will start and Gazans will be entering their third winter in a row, mostly living in tents. And there's no change expected in that regard in the foreseeable future. That will continue for years. So what's going to happen to the Gazan people? They have been radicalized by various international organizations, with the aid of various international organizations, but by the Hamas over 25 years. There needs to be a de-radicalization program. Whatever happens, there could be no more of this education which teaches them that the only purpose in life is to wake up in the morning and try to kill a Jew, as we saw 2 years ago. The vast majority of the Gazan population, even uninvolved civilians, were fully in favor of this stupid war that has destroyed their world. So we can't have another generation raised like that. There has to be a new form of education that doesn't teach people to become jihadis. In the meantime, as far as Israel is concerned, Hamas no longer pose a threat to its civilians in any serious strategic way, although they still have certain means to hurt Jews and Israelis around the world. But strategically, the threat from Hamas is, I would say, over today.
All right, so I request you to stay on with us. We're in fact getting more images from the ground. I request of our PCR crew, yes, right there you can see twins Ziv and Gali Berman. They're embracing in the Gaza Strip after they were freed from Hamas's captivity. The pair were apparently separated while held by Hamas in the Gaza Strip. There you can clearly see the elation on their faces at this point. They are smiling, overjoyed at having been safe and sound and now being reunited as well. Meanwhile, the ICRC convoy is waiting at the second hostage exchange point in southern Gaza ahead of expected second release of the Israeli hostages by Hamas's armed wing. More news coming in. We're now learning that German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has departed from Germany and will join world leaders in Sharm el-Sheikh for the signing of a formal Gaza ceasefire agreement, marking a key step in the US brokered peace plan. Germany has pledged support for enforcing the truce and delivering humanitarian aid, even as Hamas has released the first 7 hostages. And the second group, of course, we're all awaiting for them to be released. Meanwhile, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has tweeted out that today is the first crucial phase in ending the war in the Middle East. We must now deliver lasting peace and secure future for the whole region. The UK is providing additional humanitarian aid for civilians in Gaza and will lead efforts to accelerate its reconstruction. At the same time, the US Special Envoy to the Middle East has praised the UK's vital role in helping bring about the ceasefire and hostage release. Steve Witkoff specifically praised the work of Jonathan Powell, the UK government's national security advisor. He has acknowledged the vital role of the United Kingdom in assisting and coordinating efforts that have led to this historic day in Israel. Now, his post strikes a very different tone to that which was made by Mike Huckabee, the US ambassador to Israel, who yesterday stated that Cabinet Minister Bridget Phillipson was delusional about the United Kingdom's role in helping to secure the ceasefire. Witkoff's intervention has been especially helpful to Powell, who is under intense scrutiny from opposition parties in the UK, of the extent of his role in the collapse of the prosecution of 2 Britons accused of spying for China. Still with us on the broadcast is Mr. Peter Baum. Of course, I've just read out a whole lot of information that has been coming in, even as I'm gauging perspectives from you and Mr. Saul Sadka as well. But I wanted to understand from you, considering what Steve Witkoff has now posted on his Twitter account. He's praised the role of the United Kingdom, specifically National Security Advisor Jonathan Powell. What are your sources telling you about the extent of the role that the UK has played in realizing this peace deal?
Yeah, this is a very interesting and complex story, which many of your viewers will not be aware about. Let's first of all take Keir Starmer, for example. Keir Starmer can't even control the streets of London. So to think that he will have any ability going forward to control what's happening in the Middle East between Israel and her enemies is for the fairies. He's also under huge domestic pressure because of the role Mr. Powell is playing in what's been called the Chinese spy case. When both Powell and Starmer come back to the United Kingdom after the euphoria of what's going on in Sharm el-Sheikh, they will be under the severest pressure that either of them have ever been, and it is highly possible that both of them will lose their roles because of what's known as the China scandal, which I won't bother to go into the details with. Now, Mike Huckabee, as you know, was very scathing of the lack of input, shall we say, that the UK government had in the peace process. And Huckabee, being the US ambassador to Israel, would have known completely what was going on. So Huckabee's word, I think, is to be believed. Witkoff, 48 hours after, comes out with a rather positive statement, a helpful statement to the role of Mr. Powell and the United Kingdom government for their role. I think this is diplomacy at its finest. Steve Witkoff and Donald Trump have no interest in seeing anything negative happen to the UK government. Clearly, there is a personal liking between the two people, and I'm sure Qatar, who are manipulating the UK government. Don't forget, the UK government is in hock to Qatar economically. We've just several months ago, we've put out the full, in the United Kingdom, we've welcomed and honoured the Qatari royal family and all the diplomats, trying to get economic benefits from them because the UK is in a dire situation. It wouldn't surprise me if Qatar has put a little bit of pressure on Donald Trump and Steve Witkoff to say nice things about Powell and Starmer, because I tell you, domestically, when they get home, these two individuals, excuse me, will be under the severest pressure because of the Chinese spy scandal. My own personal view is I take the word of Mike Huckabee and many other analysts in the United Kingdom that Starmer and Powell were fairly isolated, and Starmer did the peace process no favours by recognising a state of Palestine just at the time when without any preconditions on Hamas, and just at the time where Donald Trump was negotiating this 21-point plan. If anything, Starmer and the UK government, along with Macron and France, hindered anything that was going forward. So Mr. Witkoff has been the ultimate diplomat in saying nice things about those two individuals.
Indeed, sir. I would like to thank you for taking out time and speaking to us on NewsX World. We're also getting more developments coming in. This time a reaction from Kaja Kallas, the European Union Foreign Policy Chief. She has welcomed the release of the 7 Israeli hostages by Hamas, highlighting US President Donald Trump's critical role in ensuring this milestone. She has stated that it is Trump who's made this breakthrough possible, and she's also stated that securing peace in Gaza will be extraordinarily complex, and this peace plan requires strong international backing to succeed. The EU stands ready to do its part and will restart a civilian mission to monitor the border crossing between Gaza and Egypt. This mission can play an important role in supporting the ceasefire. Still with us on the broadcast is Mr. Saul Sadka. Thank you so much for your patience. We've of course seen attempts by Donald Trump, who has in fact highlighted and proposed an international board of peace. American troops will be overseeing the entire procedure on the ground as well. They'll not be directly intervening, but they'll be observing. Now, the EU too has made its proposal to monitor the border crossing between Gaza and Egypt. How does Israel view all of these developments by the European Union and the United States to, in fact, have a bird's eye view of the situation?
The agreements that are ongoing are as of yet unclear about the details, but I have to wait to see the details. However, Israel's red lines are literal lines on the ground, that whatever happens to Gaza, whatever happens to Hamas, is less Israel's concern, as long as they have a buffer zone that separates any Hamas-controlled territory from Israel and Hamas-controlled territory from any kind of resupply. In other words, Israel will never allow a border between Hamas-controlled territory and Egypt, because that will simply turn the eastern part of Egypt, known as the Sinai Desert, into a ISIS terror smuggling hub again, as it was until quite recently.
All right, I have more news coming in. I'd like to thank you for your perspective, for your time. But more news coming in. The remaining 13 living hostages have been handed over by Hamas to the Red Cross, and they are all safe and sound. They are no longer hostages. The first 7 hostages, they've already been greeted now by their families as well. You can see those photographs on air, and in the meantime, we're now in fact learning that the second set, the remaining 13 of the 20 hostages who are still alive, they have now been handed over by Hamas to the Red Cross, and they're all safe and sound, and there are no longer any living hostages with Hamas. These are, of course, crucial updates. Donald Trump slated to address the Knesset very, very soon. We'll be keeping a track of that as well. But viewers, due to paucity of time, we must wrap up this bulletin over here. More news and updates on the other side. Stay tuned on NewsX World as we dip into a quick short break.
Hello and welcome to NewsX World. For this very special interview, I am joined by Hugh Duggan. We are now joined by some people who are here protesting.
We as Jewish people, we are condemning all the actions of the State of Israel.
Middle East diplomacy has been highlighted throughout this.
Countries in Europe as well, the E3 came to the, realization that the Islamic Republic does have nefarious goals and ambitions.
Hello and welcome viewers, I am Pia and you're watching NewsX World. Let's take a look at the headlines this hour. Hamas is set to release 48 hostages, both living and deceased, from Gaza between 5 and 7 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time. US President Donald Trump has called his Middle East trip very special and has stated that the war in Gaza is now over. Meanwhile, Hamas has demanded 7 Palestinian leaders be freed. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has stated that the hostage release brings tears of joy. He has called for Israelis to unite and has warned that some enemies are plotting attacks. He has stated that Israel has achieved tremendous victory, but the fight is not over. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has announced that Britain will provide a $27 million aid package to Gaza in order to support water, sanitation and hygiene services in the region. The funds will be delivered through UNICEF, the World Food Programme and the Norwegian Refugee Council. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has spoken with US President Donald Trump for the second time in 2 days. Zelensky has called the conversation productive and has discussed Ukraine's defense, air capabilities and resilience. He's added that Trump may approve Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine if Russia continues the war. US President Donald Trump has assured that tensions with China will ease. He has in fact praised Chinese President Xi Jinping as a highly respected leader and has emphasized that the United States aims to help China, not harm it. This comes as Trump earlier threatened to impose 100% tariffs on Chinese imports. Reappointed French Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu has unveiled his new cabinet, keeping most key ministers, including finance and foreign ministers, unchanged. Notable changes include Laurent Nunez as Interior Minister and Edouard Jeffrey as the Education Minister. Canadian Foreign Minister Anita Anand has arrived in New Delhi for her first official visit to India. She will meet with India's top ministers in order to reset diplomatic ties, boost economic cooperation and strengthen strategic and people-to-people relations between both nations. A mass shooting at Willie's Bar in South Carolina has left 4 people dead and over 20 injured. Police are investigating the incident with several victims in critical condition. Authorities are continuing their search for suspects as the community mourns this tragic event. Well, viewers, those are the headlines and our key focus. US President Donald Trump has announced that his upcoming Middle East trip will be very, very special. Now, speaking at Joint Base Andrews before boarding Air Force One, Trump has expressed optimism. Listen in.
So this is going to be a very special time, and I guess if you read your own papers and your own networks, everybody's very excited about this moment in time. So this is a very special event. They had 500,000 people yesterday and today in Israel, and also the Muslim and Arab countries are all cheering.
In from Jerusalem, US President Donald Trump is at the Israeli parliament, the Knesset. He is signing the visitors' book. He is quite pleased with himself, as he is himself in his own words stated that this was quite the difficult deal to crack. We've recently seen the first set of hostages, 7 to be specific. They've been released, and the photographs of them reuniting with their families, of them meeting the IDF soldiers at the first interaction point in Israeli territory after 2 years of being in Hamas's captivity have also come to light. All smiles over there. Benjamin Netanyahu standing right next to Donald Trump, accompanied by his wife Sarah as well. Trump is signing the visitors' book at the Knesset. He's expected to address the Israeli parliament very, very soon. He landed a short while ago at Ben Gurion Airport on the outskirts of Tel Aviv, and these are visuals coming in the meantime from Jerusalem, where the Israeli parliament is located. But of course, Trump, as soon as he landed, he engaged in a rather spirited conversation with Benjamin Netanyahu and Sarah Netanyahu as well. He also, in fact, met Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner and his daughter Ivanka Trump as well. They've been quite there, of course. Here is what Trump has written and penned down in the visitors' book after this landmark ceasefire agreement. Earlier, he was speaking to Benjamin Netanyahu, stating that it is a great day. Perhaps Israel's best day as well, and your best day as well. This is history, is what Netanyahu has responded. There, of course, Donald Trump being escorted. He will be addressing the Knesset very, very soon. We've just seen him sign the visitor's book. And all eyes, of course, on what Trump's agenda is. He'll be meeting the families of the hostages as well. He'll also be delivering an address at the Knesset very, very soon, from where these visuals are coming in. Then, after his commitments in Israel, he'll be heading to Egypt, where he'll be co-chairing a Gaza Peace Summit with Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. And more than 20 world leaders will be gathering in Egypt later in the day in order to discuss the ending of this particular war, as well as to ensure that peace in the Middle East prevails. Here, of course, Donald Trump has just signed the visitor's booklet. He will be, in fact, addressing the Knesset very, very soon. There, of course, he's there with Benjamin Netanyahu, Israeli Prime Minister, Israeli President Isaac Herzog as well, and Netanyahu's wife, Sarah, is also present, and quite a spirited conversation taking place. Trump on his way to address the Israeli parliament. Security is tight on the ground as dignitaries are coming into the Israeli parliament. Breaking news, of course. In the meantime, we do know that 7 hostages have now arrived at the crucial first checkpoint, the initial territory within Israel. They're undergoing medical treatment, medical checkup. That's not all. The second set of the remaining 13 alive hostages out of the 20, they have now also been handed over by Hamas to the Red Cross. They're all safe and sound. This is the latest that we are tracking. You can also spot in the background Ivanka Trump, Jared Kushner, Steve Witkoff, all who have in fact been playing a very crucial role as far as catalyzing this deal and realizing this peace deal is concerned. Trump, of course, has stated that it is one of the biggest deals that he has in. Let's in fact dip in for a few moments.
Will Israel not be able to renew the war?
Thank you.
Of course, we've just seen a live feed from the Knesset of Trump signing the visitors' book over there, even as the first set of hostages have now returned to Israel. And in the meantime, the second set have also now been handed over to the Red Cross. We're, of course, awaiting further live updates coming in. Trump is slated to address the Knesset very, very soon. We will continue to track all of these updates on NewsX World.